Welcome back to All Access Fest. Before we get started, I want to remind you of the chat and Q&A feature to the right of your screen. This is where you can introduce yourself and network with your peers, and also where we will pull questions for the Q&A at the end of the panel. And with that, I would like to introduce our next session, Breaking into Live Entertainment, moderated by Taylor Mims, live reporter for Billboard.
Hi, welcome to our panel about how we're going to talk about literally getting into live music. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Taylor Mims. I'm a reporter for Billboard magazine, and I think it would be best to start off with who we have here and what they do in the live industry. So Stefany, why don't we start with you?
No pressure. Hi, my name is Stefany Reed. I work at Live Nation. My job is artist partnerships, really just looking at additional opportunities that we can bring to our artists that we're working with on a touring basis and finding different partners to bring to them, build programs, etc. So really just kind of a bunch of special projects half the time, but really get to work with artists and different partners across the board.
Amazing. Andrew, how about you?
Hi there. Well, I work for a company called Upstaging. We are a production, logistics, and lighting company. So we've been around 52 years, and we handle a lot of North America's highest profile tour transportation, as well as lighting up a whole bunch of those shows as well.
Amazing. Brad?
How's it going? My name is Bradley Frey. I am a tour manager. Have been throughout multiple genres in my 10 to 11 years of touring, both freelance and salaried. So have a great perspective on everything from DIY to arena, stadium level touring. Started in merchandise, but quickly graduated to a little more operational and comprehensive stuff. But yeah, I'm the tour manager here today.
All right, and Shay, how about you?
Hey everyone, my name is Shay Royale. I'm an agent and director here at Wasserman Music. I lead things on the Afro music side of things. Have been in the live entertainment music space for over a decade, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So Shay, since we have you talking already, why don't we start with you? And I think something people might be interested in, because obviously when you get into the music industry, positions change, but can you tell us about your first ever job in the live music industry?
It's funny, I thought about that. I'd say a promoter, but actually I'd say my first true job was actually an assistant tour manager.
How did you end up there?
Had an interesting advantage of having someone in family who worked in the space and was touring. So I got a chance to come on tour with him, and I had to do a job, right? I couldn't just be there hanging out, turning up every night. So it got me like some firsthand exposure into really understanding how tours are put together, the logistics, the production side of things, and just how they work and how to really just be a part of it.
And Andrew, how about you? How did you start in the music industry, and how did you get there?
You know, any of us, the older set who are involved in this thing, we came in some crazy way, more often than not. For me, I wanted to be involved with shows since I saw my first concert at 7 years old. And from there, I started playing drums in band as a kid in school, eventually as a teenager working a job as a sales guy at Sears. One of the other guys there played in a local cover band, and they needed a guy to flash the lights for them. So my first job in rock and roll, I was too young to be in the bar. They would sneak me in the back door and set me up in a booth with a box that had light switches installed in it, and I just literally plugged extension cords into it and flipped light switches to make the 6 lights look like a show. And that was the start of it all, many, many years ago.
Quick question, what was that first concert at 7?
It was the bicentennial celebration at Disneyland in Florida in 1976. The headliner was Casey and the Sunshine Band, who were at the height of their powers with songs like Shake Your Booty and Get Down Tonight. And then they were opened by the Walter Murphy Group, famous for the disco version of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, and called Starbuck. And I cannot tell you what they did because that was the only time I ever heard of them.
I can see how you got hooked. Yeah. Stefany, how about you? What was your first job in live entertainment?
I'd say my first actual job was I worked at an independent record label and management company in LA, like shortly after college, which was like a kind of internship that from one internship that I had led into another one, which turned into a job. But sometimes I learned probably everything I needed to know in that job about everything in the music industry, which ended up my only real goal as a teenager was to be a tour manager. So that was my way in. And then I, like within that first year, ended up on the road as a tour manager. And I was like, well, now I can retire. But obviously I didn't get to do that yet.
Yeah. And how about you, Brad?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's great to be around other tour managers. It's there's few of us like that. I think we've all tapped into that role a little bit. My first actual opportunity in anything back of house was a volunteer opportunity being a stage manager at a festival in Grand Rapids, Michigan called Prospecto that doesn't exist anymore. But I had grown up going to shows, loving rock and roll, was following the blueprint of being in college, on my way to be a chiropractor, and then just took a hard right turn after that first time being like backstage and being like, oh my gosh, there's so much more going on. So finished college and then decided that I didn't want to go to grad school and just started playing in bands. And then my band fell apart and my other friends' bands were doing better. So I hopped in their vans, and from there it just kind of snowballed into a full-blown career.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about the music industry, but also about the live industry, is that I feel like nobody ends up where they started. Everyone kind of just moves around, finds their place. And I think that's a very natural process for everybody who's in this industry. So now that we're talking to you with these current positions, can we talk a little bit about what you actually do on a day-to-day basis, and just you can kind of summarize more or less. Why don't we start with you, Brad?
Yeah, it's funny. It took a long time to even really make sense of it as the role kind of expanded, I think, but I kind of describe it as like the connective tissue between both management and agents. So as soon as I see a signed contract, it's my job to execute everything that's on that contract. Everything as far as advancing production, all travel, hospitality, and then also execute the show itself, as well as report and deliver any reconciliation needed. So get an assignment and take all of the band and crew to where they need to go to do that assignment, execute a great show, and then bring some money home for everybody.
And Shay, how about you? What does an agent do on a daily basis?
Deal with tour managers and artists, right? But no, I think the bulk of what we do, I say it all the time, 15% of what we do is the logistical side of things, right? Finding the venues, booking the shows, getting the offer in, communicating with management, and kind of strategizing and coming up with artist plans. The other 85% is managing artists and artist team behaviors, right? And really understanding and making sure they have a better understanding of how to tour, what the right venues to be in, what scaling looks like, and really just being a part of that like long-term evergreen journey of being in live music.
Andrew, how about for you?
Well, I kind of have my dream job. My day-to-day here, and really my overall purpose, is I'm the people guy. So I curate the people that come onto our team full-time. I'm always talking to freelancers looking to join our team in a freelance role. But I'm also, Upstaging's a unique company. We've been around for 52 years and kind of been operating at the top of the industry for as long as that goes, whether it's on our trucking side or our lighting side. So, the funny part is we're kind of victims of our own success in that we don't advertise. Like no young person has ever seen our name unless they've seen it on the side of a truck outside of an arena, or, they don't have subscriptions to Production Lights Staging News magazine, which we're featured in every month. But most kids don't have that. So I go around to different conferences, to different functions, to events like this, and talk a little bit about what we do and the careers available in this industry, because our client base knows who we are, and they're among the only people on the planet that can afford us, so they come to us, but we never advertise. So again, part of what I do is marketing to younger people that may have this dream, and if it's in you, I want to talk to you about it. And from there, most of what I do is just talk to folks. It's figuring out who you are. Do you have the heart for this? Or maybe something better would be for you. I'll actually reach out to other companies and introduce them to applicants here if they're not a fit for what we're looking for, just because I was a kid once that had a dream to do this, and now I'm the guy that gets to open the gate.
Amazing. Stefany, how about you? What does day-to-day look like for you?
I would say that I have a pretty special job at Live Nation that probably doesn't look like a lot of others. So I feel very fortunate to have that. But I'm really looking for how we can partner with external companies from a marketing perspective, also seeing what assets that we have that we can utilize to market our artists. But I'm in a rare position, I feel like, in the sense that I don't market concerts. I'm really I care about marketing the artist and finding different ways for us to reach a different audience for them. I'm a big believer that if you listen to an artist's music, you're probably more likely to buy a ticket. So I'm really just always looking for additional things that we can bring to our artists, partners that we can work with. So the day-to-day, a lot of the time, is building something. What does it look like for us to work together? Could we plug 5 artists, 20 artists, 30 artists into something, and then bringing that opportunity and rolling that out to different artists, and making sure that we get, participation and everyone's going to, getting everything that they need from a marketing perspective kind of on both sides. So mostly just looking at marketing. I don't do really brand deals, but really more just making sure that all of our artists, as many as we can, are being seen in any additional ways.
Yeah. So now that we kind of have a layout of what everyone does on a day-to-day basis, the question is, how do you get into these positions? So Stefany, how does someone break into marketing in live?
Well, I would tell you, and I'm probably going to touch on some other things we'll probably talk about later, but in the same way that we talked about, I was a tour manager once upon a time, I think there's no one way in. I actually texted a number of friends today in all different positions, some of them also in marketing, to say, how did you get here? And everybody honestly had such different answers, from they were runners, they worked film and TV, they ended up getting a job at a college and doing, booking and marketing for the college shows, and then they met somebody else that way. I had one internship that was not marketing, and I was doing logistics and tour managing and going on the road with bands, to maintaining those relationships and leveraging them into something else when I got the phone call from one thing to the next, right? And was definitely not a marketing person 2 jobs ago. So now I am, right? And I don't think there's any one way in, but I think it's about being creative and showing that you can add value in a different way than somebody else. And I think I actually had a friend in one of the messages tell me today, and she's now the head of marketing at a major label company, was I realized that I wasn't going to be the most strategic person in the room. So I found other ways to add value in the conversations that I was in, so that I started to get included in different conversations. And I think that that's real, right? Finding the thing that's yours when you do get the opportunity to be there, show up and maybe bring something different, be an expert in something that someone else isn't. No specific way to end up as a marketer, I just want to say, but we're all related here, in some way, shape, or form. And, we're dealing with Brad's dealing with something that we told you on a marketing perspective that had to be delivered in the same way that Shay is doing that. And Andrew's probably there making sure that there's lights and it all happens from a production perspective. So yes, that's my informal how to be a marketer answer. It could go any way. You can start at a venue, you can start wherever.
Yeah, I imagine, as we kind of touched on a little bit already, that's going to be the case for everyone, at least a little bit of there's different ways into it. But Shay, how about you? How would you recommend someone become an agent? How do they break into becoming an agent?
I think it's starting in any of the ways we started, right? An entry-level role that kind of gets you in the weeds of like being in live music, whether it be as, doing stuff on the production side, being an assistant, being on tours, things in that sense. But I think more specifically with being an agent, it's going to always be your artist relationships, right? And understanding how the business works. So being a student of the game, you know what I mean? Try to figure out who's who and what's what in that sense. And, know your artist, you know what I mean? Go to shows, get a better sense of how they work in that sense, right? And then, look at internships that will obviously allow you to get your foot in the door to actually start experiencing what a day-to-day looks like at an agency, right? Because you have your independent agents, you got your larger agencies like Wasserman and your UTAs and CAs and, so on and so forth, right? But I think it's just taking that leap of faith and just trusting your process within music, you know what I mean? And just, again, being a student of the game. You have to know the faces, you got to know the rules, and you have to know how the business works.
Yeah. And Andrew, I don't think everyone can make their way in through a Disney concert, or that was actually how you, or lighting.
No, that was just how I fell in love as a 7-year-old. I don't think they would have let me work, but I would have volunteered at that point. No, it really is. It's about getting out there and doing it. It's like anything, if you want to be a writer, start writing. If you want to be a musician, pick up an instrument. With one, again, I'm sure that a lot of us had non-traditional paths in. I was the house drummer at a club in Chicago several nights a week, and the sound guy asked me if I could cover a stage for him that weekend for a festival. I went and did it. It turned out that I was really good at running stages for festivals, and by the next year, I was the production manager in charge of the entire festival. It's really one of those things where it's just like, show up, do a good job, be earnest in your actions, and people will recognize. You have to put some faith out there, and you always have to show up. That's the bottom line. You have to show up. You have to start somewhere. You have to start doing something, and you'll be seen. Again, I showed up randomly as a fill-in to stage manage for a day, and the company hired me full-time after that weekend. I was a production manager for them within a year. And then all the other companies worked with me, and they poached me away. And I'm on like my 4th poaching at this point, working for one of the best companies in the world now. So it's really just about showing up and getting into it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, ask questions, find mentors. There's no one traditional way in. The easiest way, come find me somewhere. I'll open the door. Let's go. So, but yeah, mostly non-traditional ways into the industry for most of us,
Yeah. And Brad, any advice for anyone trying to become a tour manager?
Yeah, I mean, I fully piggyback everything that everyone has said thus far. It's all great insight, and I agree with it entirely. It's kind of difficult to say anything different than what's already been said, but like Shay said, it's definitely it can be a bit of who you know. While the industry seems like this very large organism that is, there's so many different facets to it. It's specifically touring, it's a very personable industry. So the relationships are very huge. And then, yeah, like Andrew was saying, as soon as you get that opportunity to show what you know, make sure that it is earnest, make sure that it is thorough, and you do a good job. When I was very young, one of the first rules they ever told me in touring was just be nice and have fun. I think how you treat people in this industry, and how you treat yourself also, very importantly, will go a very long way with how good of a job you can do. And yeah, it's all about just creating a world for yourself, being passionate about that world, and then how that world can service others.
Yeah. Now I'm curious, and we can start with if anyone in particular feels like they know this well about their business, but how does your company recruit new hires? Is there anyone in particular who wants to start? Please, Andrew.
I'll say
well, that's
now
kind of my job.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm cool with everybody else talking, please.
I think Brad started talking. So,
Yep.
Brad, do you want to?
I don't know. We froze a little bit. Is it me or Andrew?
It's not me.
Brad.
Okay. I'll just say, yeah, I will say now, especially having spun out of a 5-year career in tour management and going back to freelance, like kind of back to my roots of grinding and finding new jobs and filling the calendar. There are so many more resources than ever before to find jobs of every facet, whether it's, BobNet, gigs, different networking group chats, Aubrey Wright's network, different touring production companies that you can reach out to that staff tours. The role of tour director exists now, where you're purely just putting people on the road and building tours. And LinkedIn even. I mean, I just happened to be scrolling on LinkedIn and saw a tour manager job for National Geographic. So it's like the opportunities are definitely out there. And it's about specifically with touring, it's about taking that leap of faith and just putting your eggs in that basket, because it is a bit of a scheduling gauntlet that you have to commit to. But there are a ton of resources out there. It's just about having the conversation, meeting the right people, getting the right chance, and doing the best you can with it.
Yeah. Andrew, I know you were ready to go.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's kind of what I do most days. So ultimately, there are a lot of ways to get in touch with us or to get your foot in the door. I know personally, I try to go to, when it comes to school-based organizations, there are several out there that are based for either college students or high school students to get involved with theatrical technology and productions. Those are great ways to learn and get involved and run into people. I personally first volunteered at the local free theater in my hometown to learn how to work on a stage when I was 12. So as far as recruiting stuff goes, there's been a lot of stuff since the pandemic that's popped up to increase access to this knowledge to learn. There's been a big push by a group of a charity that Metallica supports called All Within My Hands to get more trade programs and entertainment technician programs into community colleges around the country. We've been working really hard and giving away the curriculum for free in order to do that, to try to increase the availability at a more equitable level for everyone to try to get their feet wet. And I would encourage people to try to find ways to, find some technical training and see if it's for you, because, I wouldn't want you to get into that job and try to throw all your eggs in that basket and have it not be the thing you're looking for. So the easiest way to get involved is find anybody locally that's doing the thing and start bugging them. Start asking them if you can help. Where can you show up? Hey, I've got an idea. Like, if anybody that keeps knocking on my door, I'm going to call you back eventually, okay? Because you're earnest, you're honest, you're in this, you want this. Let's talk,
Yeah. Stefany, I don't know if you know of Live Nation's recruiting habits.
Yes, I'm definitely not an HR person by any means, but I do know that they go to a bunch of like career fairs and college campuses, and we have a number of different intern programs. I know they partner with like BMAC and SOLA, and so there's definitely other organizations that we also partner with. So there's definitely a number of ways. I know we're always doing like spring, fall, summer internship programs also. So those are definitely ways, but college career fairs and things like that also they're there.
Of course. Yeah. Shay, any thoughts?
I was gonna say very similar to what Stefany said. We do a spring and fall internship program. I'd say stay glued into the website. On the careers page, there's a new post each and every day. We're always actively looking at folks. If you're already in the industry and you're just looking to make a transition or a crossover, whatever the case may be, just keep doing what you do at the highest level. People are going to pay attention and notice it, right? Going to shows, for sure. Andrew said it best. Jump in there, help out. Someone's going to see you. If I'm an agent, I see you, doing something, I'm going to ask who you are, especially if I don't see a lanyard or something on you, right? So, those are like good conversation starters. But yeah, entry-level roles are always going to be your easiest way to get there. The normal track for an agent's always going to be an assistant, a coordinator, maybe a manager, a senior manager before you kind of go director and then vice president and senior vice president, it keeps going up like that, right? So there's always some type of scale that you can get on. But just staying visible and doing what you do at the highest level, I'd say is the best thing. And then using your resources too.
Yeah.
One thing I was just going to add is, is at least like at a really big company. I'd never worked at a big company before, Live Nation. And in the same way that Andrew said, I'm usually the first person to be like, just reach out. And honestly, I've ended up hiring interns that I had met at some point, and then them following up with me every quarter, and they didn't always work out. And maybe I had another person, right? But I ended up like at one point hiring somebody because they did just stay in my inbox enough, not too much, but just enough. But I would say that the other flag is, even if like it's not a person that has a job that you're specifically interested in, we are a network, especially inside of a big company. Even if we don't know each other, I can see who another role reports to. And like, if I know you and I feel like I'm happy to represent you in some way, I'm always also happy to say, hey, consider this person for this role, right? Like, so you never know like who you meet. A lot of the time people end up connecting you in other ways. And that's just like the same message we're all saying here, but continues to build your network, show up at places. Maybe you work an event with somebody, you leave a good impression. They're like, of course, send me a note so I have your info, connect with me on LinkedIn. If you see something that makes sense, I'm always happy to pass your info along. I think that that's kind of how the networking really can happen.
Yeah, and before this, we as a panel kind of decided that we didn't want to just say, get an internship, go out there and network. These are very specific things of how to do this, how to get that entry-level job, how to start talking to people who are already in industry. One other thing that I think would be kind of fun to talk about would be somebody in your realm currently who you think is just a cool person to know about, who's doing really interesting stuff, who's just for anyone who's looking in that area, who they should look out for or keep an eye on what this person's doing. I don't know if Brad, if you have anyone in mind.
Yeah, sure. I will say Chadrick Fellers runs a company called Wasted Potential. And that is who found me after I got out of my 5-year client and went back to freelancing. And I made a pivot from the alternative pop sphere to the hip hop sphere. And he just kind of just reached out on a limb and was like, I think you'd be a good fit here. And just kind of being ingrained and intertwined with what Wasted Potential is doing from a tour direction and a creative standpoint is really awesome. They have a diverse roster, and all of the tours that they put on the road are just exceptional. The programming is beautiful. So yeah, Chad Fellers at Wasted Potential is who I would recommend.
Fantastic. Shay, anybody come to mind?
You know, I was thinking, like, do you say a promoter? We got Live Nation on the call here. You know, probably should say top promoter, another agent.
I'm not a promoter, so you're fine. You don't have to say me.
No, I'll throw Rob Gibbs out there. He's one of the co-heads at UTA. Rob's a phenomenal guy. It's funny, I'm shouting out someone that's not at our agency, but I'm doing that because I think, again, going back to what Stefany said with this kind of being a community, it's always important to acknowledge people that kind of take you in with open arms. You know what I mean? And even though I was at Wasserman, it was, you know, I could feel the light, you know, coming from Rob. And I think it's like super important to acknowledge other agents and promoters and tour managers that are doing other things and working with other artists, right? Because again, we are a community, right? And the best way to kind of stay in the community is keep the community tight. So I'd shout him out.
For sure. Stacey, how about you?
I'm guessing you mean me, but I'm going to give a PC answer probably. I mean, in general, obviously we're a huge company. So, you know, we have everybody working around the globe, which I actually think is really cool, and really focused on all different genres, different areas. So there's really like some top leaders in a number of different areas. And even like, if you're not working in those areas, we actually have promoters that are happening on the local level in every market, you know, as many markets as we can. So that's my PhD answer. Some of my best friends, and I think that everyone's doing the best, and they're all awesome, including, everybody that's here. And I think the same thing. It's like, I'd probably, if I didn't work at Live Nation, would just, call out some of the digital marketers that I've worked with in the past or that are crushing it, that have now made their ways from artists to Spotify to Instagram to all these different companies. And there's so many people that are movers and shakers, but people are really kind of like, just to tell that story, like everyone can end up kind of all over the place. So everyone's really just out here hustling, doing the most.
Andrew, anyone come to mind?
Well, I would just encourage people to get out and see any of the shows that we've got out there right now. I would really encourage people to go see the Childish Gambino tour. That is a technical tour de force right now, and our team's killing it. And we were able to actually field quite a diverse team to support that tour, which was fantastic. I don't know if the panel would be aware, but the lighting industry has been it looks like this for a long time, right? I'm actually doing what I can to change that. So, but yeah, I would just encourage people to get out to see a show. The Childish Gambino gig that's out right now is amazing. Billie Eilish's tour that's coming up is going to be phenomenal. For a smaller tour, if you can get out and see bands like Two Door Cinema Club or a solo artist named Mitski, both of those shows are amazing looking right now. Fall in love with what you see. Go to anything that seems like it speaks to you and fall in love with it. And be aware that there are 70 jobs behind the scenes on average for every person you see on stage. And maybe there's part of your dream that fits one of those roles, You got to do something to pay your bills. Why not do something you love, right?
Yeah. I have been covering the live business for many years now, and I still learn on a regular basis about jobs that I did not know existed. So I think that's great advice. I think there's plenty of people who you don't even know are doing something phenomenal behind the scenes to make that live event happen. So I think, why don't we move to a question, and not everybody has to answer this, but is there another job in the live music industry you would want to do?
Stefany's job.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have like a real answer to that it's like half of a different question also, but I think it's part of my story is, I think there's people that do the same, they go through the path, right? Like Shay, I'm sure you didn't just wake up one day and you were an agent, right? Like you've been on the path to being an agent for however many years, and that's a part of like who you are. That's what you know. But I think in my personal experience, I've never actually really done the same job twice. And that is probably a different path than most. I definitely did not become an expert at anything. I've become more of a little bit of a generalist, but that's allowed me to build a broader network in a different way, but take different pieces of knowing what a tour manager does and what happens and what Upstaging is doing and where the agent falls into place. And then being with the artist to now working on the other side and saying, I think that this is realistic for us to get over the line with an artist, but I've actually jumped from touring to being like an assistant to I worked at a tech company and I did sales and client services. And then I went and worked for an artist doing digital marketing. And now I'm here doing a different job that's kind of made up of artist partnerships and marketing partnerships. So I don't have anything else that I want to tell you that I want to do because I just keep kind of finding the thing that's interesting to me along the way that I feel like I want to go and learn that new skill. But I don't think that there's any right or wrong way. I think that's my like point in that is there's no right or wrong way in this industry. Is like just because you didn't maybe go on the 20-year path to being an agent doesn't mean that there's not an opportunity for you here in the industry to like pivot along the way and change your path.
Absolutely. Anyone else have? I mean, Shay, you said Stefany's job.
I mean, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, just thinking about it. I mean, I like the behind the scenes role. I think, being an agent is one of those unsung hero roles. You know what I mean? Like, the managers, the tour managers. You hardly ever know the agents. Especially with our rosters. But being the creative that I am, I'm gonna lean towards a little what Andrew does. Production, lighting. I mean, that's interesting to me. You know what I mean? being able to change the perception that people have around live shows is, I think, is a huge part of like what's going to be able to change the industry. I mean, we rep both Billy and Childish, so shout out to you, Andrew, for putting those shows together. But yeah, a lot of, we rep Kendrick, we rep Drake, Baby Keem, SZA, right? So when you see their sets, and I've seen them perform in different countries, right? And it all still looks great, right? So being able to be a part of that, to impact how people are, taking in a show and how fan bases are actually expanding, I think just thinking about how impactful that is to just be on the production side is kind of crazy, right? Because, think of how many people go to a show and they're like, this is kind of, you know what I mean? Right. So shout out to what Andrew does on the back end to make those things good. So, yeah.
And it's part of living the dream that we get to do this. This was always something I wanted to do, but, I just every day I think about the factors that impact something like job satisfaction, right? Like if you got to work, you'd rather be happy doing what you do. One of the things about the job satisfaction of working in production is no 2 days are alike. You might be setting up the same show, but you're in a different venue, you're in a different space. You might have different difficulties that day. Every day is going to be a test of your faculties. A lot of the time, you'll know whether or not you belong in this industry when the whole plan goes out the window and you're still cool with it. You're still getting things done. But, ultimate, and sorry, I might lose my train of thought here, but getting back to the focus, sorry, I was having too much fun. The idea of getting out and working in any way, my path was nuts. I was a drummer who then stage managed, who then became a production manager, and then production managing. A lot of the technicians I'd hired to do my shows liked working with me. So once 12 years ago in the middle of the night, I got a phone call from a monitor engineer that said, hey, the artist just chose me to pick the next tour manager, and you're the only person I think can handle them. I was on a flight the next morning running a tour for the next 2 months. It really just depends. Whatever challenge you're faced with, and if you want to be part of this, get after it. You may never end up where you think you're going to, but once you get on that path, you'll find where you belong. And so please, whatever it takes, whatever your passion is for this, go explore it, because that may not be where you end up. There may be no money in it. There may be no opportunity in it, but you will find those paths off to the side that are going to lead you to what you're looking for. There are gardens out there that you're going to stumble into and be happy, but you got to get up and do something first,
Sounds like I have a job after this.
Hey, man, come on. Yeah. I can't wait to talk to you when we're done here, man.
I'll tap in.
And this is a problem for a lot of people. They put them in the room with me, and then pretty soon I've hired their entire team. But it's okay. It'll work.
We have a few minutes left, so I think I'm going to open the floor for some questions from the chat. Let's see. Let's see. So someone was asking. I like this question. It was, I'm trying to transition from theater stage management to working in touring and live camera board and lighting operations, but I find that every company uses different consoles. What is your advice on learning the technical aspects of touring, and where should I start?
Well, if you're looking at the lighting side of things, you definitely want to learn Grand MA3. That's what all of the biggest shows are running. But I will say there are some great opportunities. I mean, everybody learns ETC technology in schools. They've kind of got that market on lockdown. But it's really about finding a technology that you enjoy. If it is lighting, fantastic. Grand MA3 is where it's at for the biggest touring shows. But again, there are a lot of smaller shows where you can get your foot in the door locally, where they're using a lot more, entry-level technology that, and that's where you need to be, right? When you're getting your foot in the door anyway. I don't encourage anyone to, we get a lot of our full-time technicians who get really confident in their skills programming a front of house board, and then they hear, this artist needs a front of house programmer, and they come running and they say, oh, Andy, could I be a front of house programmer? And I say, no, you know what, buddy, I know how badly you think you want that, and we always send that role to a freelancer. And then they go, but why? But I work here. Why wouldn't you give it to me? And I go, because that role always gets fired, man, and I don't want to ruin your career this early on. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, you know, if you ask an A&R rep what they do, it's, you know, the second thing on the list is probably get fired. But, you know, I mean, you didn't hear that from me.
Yeah, it's very good advice.
Sorry, I'll get off topic.
No, that's great. That's great. It's just good to know. Okay. We have a question from Amani. How can you best stand out when it comes to actually getting responses regarding jobs in the music industry? I've been getting a lot of, that may not have finished, but we'll go with that.
I mean, I'll give away my secret sauce, and that's do things. Like, every kid that goes through a 4-year theater program at a college pretty much hands me the exact same resume. How does that, okay, cool. So this is what happens to that. And I look at the person in the eyes and I start having a conversation with them, and that tells me who they are. What I love to see on a resume that gets me excited is, what are your extracurriculars? Where did you volunteer? Like, where was this so in your blood that you couldn't help but get it out? Like, show me that, because that's who I need. That's the people that no matter what happens are never going to fold, because this is part of who they are. Show people that's who you are by getting involved. It's the best way to do it. We spend way too much time in our own heads staring at screens these days. And get out, get involved, because I will guarantee you AI is going to be a long time before it knows how to bolt truss and get it flown in the air. And it's always going to be hard work no matter what. So get out there, get involved, you know, get active. If you really want to work in show production, make sure that you have a little bit of, you know, you need a few things. You need to be a computer networking technician. You need to be a temporary construction worker. You need to be somewhat military in your, you know, ability to get by on a few hours of sleep sometimes, because ultimately the show goes on. And if anything goes wrong, we don't have any extra time to fix it. We've got to fix it. That's our job. So, you know, it's the hardest job you'll ever love. But, you know, again, you got to get out there and do things that are going to, and then put them on your resume where I can see them, you know, do that and get in front of people. That's how you get noticed. It's just, you know, the advent of the internet has made it amazing that we can get information and communicate in real time globally, but it's also created so much noise that you don't know which way to go. And so I'm just saying, like, find something, key in on it, be diligent in your follow-ups, and just get out there and do things, and make sure that you're updating your resume regularly to reflect all of that stuff you're doing, because that's what I'm looking for.
I will say one thing that Stefany mentioned earlier regarding outreach is like a quality over quantity thing, is definitely kind of own in and focus on, find out what you want to do and make sure you're reaching out to the right people. And when you do reach out, it's a quality outreach that A, doesn't get passed by, or you know, doesn't get looked over if you send it too many times, and also leaving opportunity for there to be an open door to something else. Because like we've all said, it's, you know, it's about who you know, and it's a small world. So it's like, cool, if Stefany doesn't have a place for you here, she can lead you here. Or if I don't need a third audio person, I might put you at merch, you know, like, be open to the other opportunities, but also, you know, be diligent in what it is that you want. So it's a quality over quantity thing on the outreach for sure. Because all of our inbox.
I tell you, there's a girl that was an intern at Live Nation one time. She reached out to me, scheduled time with me, and has since then probably sent me maybe a quarterly update, but I know her name. Anytime, like, I'm like, I'll be the first person to recommend this girl. She tells me everything that she's done, sends links to anything cool that she's been up to. And it feels really personal, and she's not actually asking for anything, but I like know at some point she's going to graduate, and her name has shown up in my inbox just enough times. And I'm like, look at her. She's crushing it. She's doing the thing. She's finding the next thing. And I think that is exactly, it's the quality there. And the other thing I'd say, it's proof right here, is that everybody likes to hear themselves talk. So one of the main things I do tell people when I mentor them is, like, don't be afraid to ask questions and talk with any and everybody that will talk to you, even if it's not what you want to do. Like, I want to sit down with Andrew and talk to him for 100 hours because he's so fun. I actually wrote in the chat if you'd be friends with me, but like, that is like, that's real, because now I'm like, oh, I want to know that you are a person. I want to ask you more about you. And then when someone asks me about live, I have a person to connect them to. Asking people anything, everyone will always be happy to introduce you to somebody else because they feel really proud of that. So take the opportunity to ask people questions and keep a relationship with them.
That's awesome.
Andrew, I'm reaching out after this. We're going to be like friends.
Yeah, I love it. No worries. And yeah.
Yeah, meet friends on panels too. That's apparently a good way to do it. Well, we have only a couple more seconds, so I'll just take this opportunity to say thank you to all our panelists and to everyone who came and asked questions, and we appreciate you listening.
I'm going to take a picture.
Not the balloons.
Not the balloon.
Are you like your real one? Okay.
And this backdrop's real too, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Just to say, I'm happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn. Send me a follow or whatever. I'm always happy to chat, and probably don't have time to do one-on-ones with everyone, but always happy to connect you guys in any way.
Absolutely.
Great.
So are we going to hang out with people for more Q&A? Is that what happens at this point, or?
Not 100% sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
That was a wonderful conversation. I want to thank our wonderful moderator and panelists. We have a little bit of a break, so right now you can meet others in the after party space by clicking the rooms and finding the name of the stage. And you can also explore the exhibitor booths and the speed networking room. Go play around, but we will be back here at 12:15 for Building Sound Futures, Production and Engineering Jobs. See you. Thank you.